Good morning. I'm Nancy Cook, Vice Chair of DEI.
I'm Anjali Rajput, and I'm a co-chair for the DEI committee for Westford. We have our guest today, Mark Chambers.
Current Chief of Police of the Westford Police Department.
We're very happy to have you here.
I'm happy to be here.
We've been trying to get this together for, it seems like, a couple of years at least now, and thankful that you've been able to make time for us today to do this. Anjali, do you want to start with our questions for the Chief?
Thank you, Nancy.
Great.
So my first question is, what made you join law enforcement?
So it's actually kind of funny. I've always been interested in almost protecting others. Even as a kid, I was always kind of concerned that the people in my group, where they were, what they were doing, if they were safe. You know, if we went out as kids, I was always the one that was trying to wrangle everybody and keep track of them. And then I was actually a history major when I first went to college, but my best friend at the time, he's currently still working for the Westford Police Department, Detective Sergeant Rogers, was an auxiliary with the Westford Police Department. And I was hearing all the fun things that he was doing. At that point, I was working part-time at an insurance agency in an office wearing a shirt and tie, and it definitely is not, despite the tie right now, it's not one of those things that I really ever wanted to do, was be in an office full-time. So after talking with Dennis Rogers and hearing all the fun things that he was doing, I actually switched my major to criminal justice, and from there it was just, I fell in love. It met my skill set. I really enjoyed it. I love giving back to the community. Being able to, I first started in Groton for about 2 years before I was able to transfer here to Westford. And I always make the analogy that, particularly for Westford, when people travel or go on vacation, they come back home from their vacation and they don't feel like they're at home until they walk in the door of their house. I feel that way when I get off the exit of the highway.
That's awesome.
So the old exit 32, as soon as I got off 495, I felt
home.
like I was home. As soon as you're amongst the familiar roads and the trees and landmarks, it was I could feel the stress and my body just decompress. So to be able to continue to serve this community has been one of the great pleasures of my life. And then just being able to progress in all the different positions that I've held within the police department and all the different experiences that I've been able to have inside the police department, from detective and working with regional teams and being able to teach all the way around New England and work with international instructors. Recently, some more work with the FBI Leader organization, which is a leadership organization that has leadership programs throughout the country, and actually they're going international now as well. So I've been very fortunate in my career development, and the thing that's really made it even more worthwhile for me is that I get to do it in my hometown. So.
And you have it in your blood.
And I have it in my blood. My grandfather was a police officer in Maynard for about 15 years. Unfortunately, his partner was shot back in the 50s when he was still working, and one of the reasons why he left law enforcement because of the stress. But he also worked 2 jobs back then. He was a police officer at night and a finished carpenter in Boston, a union carpenter in Boston during the day. Got about 4 hours of sleep a day and had 4 children at home to take care of as well. So he actually pinned me with my badge when I graduated from the police academy.
That's
so
wonderful.
I've been blessed. I've been very fortunate in my career, and being able, like I said, to do that here in Westford, I think is one of the reasons why I've actually stayed in law enforcement as well. I feel like I connect with the community. It is, when I say this is my town, it's my town. I love this town. So to be able to continue to serve this town in the capacity that I have has been very gratifying.
Well, thank you for explaining your background and what really incited you in this department.
Yeah.
Coming to a very difficult question, which is, you have been a part of the community. Do you see any racial bias?
Yeah, so when I was reviewing some of these questions, this one is a difficult question. And, unfortunately we do see some racial bias within the community. It's very subtle. And I think that a lot of people don't know that they're participating in a bias activity. It's an implicit bias, which everyone has, whether you want to admit it or not. Everybody has implicit bias. Self-conscious or unconscious biases that affect how you do everything.
Right.
So in this town, yeah, we'll get calls occasionally, like you get the call for the person that doesn't fit in, or most recently we've received calls down to like East Boston camps. There's some really nice beachfront in East Boston camps, and people from other communities do come in and use it, and there are some people within our community that will report the people that are down there strictly because they don't look like Westford residents. So it's important as police officers, when we go down and we see that type of bias at play, when we'll go down and we'll see absolutely no criminal acts, no suspicious activity, that we confront it. We will follow up with the original reporting party when we can, if they're identifiable, and let them know that there was nothing untoward going on, and we also let them know what our impression of what the original call was. And it's important to call out that type of behavior, and oftentimes people don't realize that may have informed their decision to call the police. So it is very important to reach out and kind of make those points with people. Inside the police department, I don't see it within our own officers, and I think part of that is we're consistently trying to address officers' implicit bias and the types of training and policies that we have. We're an accredited agency. We just actually received our 6th edition accreditation just recently, and we were awarded our reaccreditation in June. And all of that is part of having policies and procedures to try and address those types of biases. So we try to stay up to date on all of our policies. We do quarterly reviews. Our supervisors review all of our officers' citation data for race and for information on the stops to see if we can identify any patterns. If we do see a pattern, we do address it immediately. We do have strong disciplinary history within the police department, so we take discipline and retraining of our officers very seriously. So when we have the opportunities to retrain an officer on some of these unconscious bias, we do. We want to make sure that what we're providing to the community is beyond reproach. And we also try to make sure that we are very transparent and we hold our officers accountable. So if we were to ever find anything of that nature, we certainly would address it appropriately, whether it's retraining or if it is moving to the next step and moving for a termination of an officer. We want to make sure that the community has faith and trust in us and how we perform our, or how we take our responsibilities. So,
in that same line, how do you handle the or what can we as a community do for the bias against police officers?
So yeah, that's a very relevant question. I think, really 3 years ago we saw that kind of spike. I think it began long before that. I think that type of that type of sentiment seemed to start percolating back in mid 2015, 2006. I think with the Ferguson incident, we started to see some of that locally. And to be honest, I think that really did affect the morale of the police department, particularly with the murder of George Floyd in Minnesota. To have that national issue brought home, although the police locally understand it, we have completely different policies and procedures and training and accountability measures that we follow here. So to have that national tragedy, and that spotlight directed at the Westford Police Department, it was very, very difficult to address. But fortunately, we have a very close-knit community. I think some of the things that we've tried to do to gain that trust and show that we take our commitment to the community seriously is the community outreach events that we do. But the community itself, I think they've become more vocal over the past year or two. I think that COVID and the George Floyd stuff I think that was just a recipe for hatred and bias, and I think there was just, everything went haywire at that point.
Yeah, it did.
So it was a very difficult time for everybody. And now that there's much more personal interaction back in the world, I think that people are realizing some decisions were made in a vacuum that may not have, that had good intentions but have had disastrous results. And I think that just like anything else in life, I think it should be in moderation. It needs to be in balance. And I think you're seeing some of that balance return. But as far as what the community can do to help us if we encounter anti-police bias, I think it's just continuing to have those conversations, continuing to be part of the culture of this community. We're trying to make sure that we're available for every culture within this community, because the police are the people and the people are the police. So we can't do our jobs without the community, and the community needs us to do our jobs for everybody to be safe. And I think that that understanding and that engagement and that type of conversation that we're able to have, particularly over the past couple of years, I think has gone a long way to counter some of the anti-police bias. And in the future, just please look at everything with an open mind. I think everybody understands that what we do is done with the best intentions here, and that's why we've tried to be so open, accountable, transparent, because we want everybody to know that we're trying to do everything the right way. Occasionally we will make mistakes. You can't be perfect all the time. So give us a little bit of trust. You know, I think that we've earned it. I think most people would extend that to us and at least give us the opportunity to answer.
I appreciate that.
Just for our audience, if you would just give us some examples of what are those outreach activities, just like name a few of them for the community.
Yeah, so one of the things that we've been able to do over the past several years is we ended up creating a community event team. So essentially community engagement.
Okay.
We have 12 members of our police department that continue to work with different organizations within the community to provide just police officer representation. Sometimes just having officers present sometimes helps to build that trust within the community, because we're accessible.
You're human.
Yeah, and when it's, you know, make people more comfortable to just come up and speak with an officer. And then we host other events. You know, we've done the movie night. We went down to the community picnic, the cultural picnic, just a little while ago down at 4-H. You know, we've had information tables at the Westford Farmers Market, you know, and then we do more specific things for people that are looking into law, or kids that are looking into law enforcement. We recently started doing our Youth Police Academy, which we have held at Westford Academy the past 2 summers. We increased our participation to 50 students this past year, which was excellent. You know, we've gotten to not only show the, and it's been really cool because we've gotten a lot of diversity within those the kids that have been interested in that. So that's been eye-opening for our officers as well. You know, that's one of those things that we'd like to explore more in the community. But that's been a really good outreach event for us as well. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback. I know both of you have some experience with that. Yeah.
You
So
do hockey too?
We do Learn to Skate, which we're actually partnering with the Chelmsford Police Department this year to perform a couple Learn to Skates. Hopefully it's either going to be at the Tingsboro Skate 3 or the Forum over in Chelmsford. Information on that should be coming out within the next couple weeks.
Not subject to the weather again.
Not subject to the weather, right? So we've been throwing some money down some community policing funds that we've been able to get donated. You know, we did buy a liner for a rink, but the weather hasn't cooperated the past couple of years, and we've had to cancel events. So we're trying to limit some of the exposure on that. And then on top of that, you know, we did the movie night. I thought that was great. We moved it to the fall this year, which I thought was pretty cool. You know, bring your blankets and chairs, and you know, I think we did a Halloween themed Hocus Pocus. I think we did this year, which was pretty cool. You know, and Toys for Tots events, and we've been doing Coffee with the Cop. We try to partner with some of the area agencies. We did that with the Littleton Police Department in the spring. We just did Smoothies with the Cop over in Littleton a couple weeks ago, and I'm going to be at the Toys for Tots event over in Littleton with Chief Bernard. So yeah, it's a big one. So we've done a lot of things to try and get engagement, and you know, since we formed that community engagement team, there's just a lot lot of good ideas that have been flowing, and just trying to prioritize what we can do. Our staffing isn't where we really want it right now, so it's been a little bit more difficult. But
but you're everywhere.
Yeah, we try to be as many places as possible, and we do have a link on the website as well for to request the community event team. It's not appropriate for an officer to show up at somebody's birthday party, but if you're holding a community event, if we can get a couple of representatives there, we can do that. Yeah, it's not birthday cake with the police.
Although that's not a bad idea.
No, it'd be fantastic. I wouldn't be able to staff it equally though. But we just did the holiday high five right before Thanksgiving, and that's one of those short duration events that seem to really.
It's great to watch that. Watch the pictures.
It's really rewarding for the officers to see the kids come in. I don't know that there's the appetite for it at the high school, but at the middle school age, the kids have been really excited to see the officers, and they come in and jump and give high fives, and that's been really rewarding for the guys and girls to do that.
Two granddaughters at WA that love their interaction with the SRO there. So, daily conversations in the hall or in guidance office, they thoroughly enjoy.
Yeah,
which is awesome.
We've been fortunate to have Tony at the schools.
I saw him the other day during the holiday bazaar. Just didn't have the opportunity to go and speak with him on that day. I was with my teenager.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm going to say hello to him. And then how the teenagers react, right? Like, I want to walk away. I don't want to be part of that. So I missed that opportunity for sure.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah.
Does a great job.
So just talking about, when we talk about diversity, then naturally comes the language barriers. Does the team ever come across language barriers in the town? We
do, but fortunately, when we've come across the local language barriers with our Indian and Asian communities, oftentimes there's generations within a household.
Yeah.
So, the older generation may not speak English as well as the younger generation. So a lot of times what we'll do is we'll try to employ the children to help bridge the gap. If people were to call into the station, a lot of times our dispatchers have phone numbers that they can call to get additional interpretive services. We do live in a very diverse area, so some of the other departments in our area have officers that speak different dialects. So we will lean on other towns if we need to.
What do you do in a traffic stop?
Google Translate. It really, it's not perfect, but it's enough to convey what we need to convey, and it also allows the person that we've stopped to be able to communicate enough with us, so we can kind of get a general idea of what's going on and what they're experiencing prior to issuing any citation, or even if it's just just want to make you aware of your driving behavior and have a nice day.
Yeah.
So, any of those translation apps on smartphones, they're very useful.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
What is the hiring process in Westford, and how do we attempt to make it more in line with what our population is?
That's a great question. So, currently Westford PD is a civil service agency. So what that means is the state administers an annual test that any of our candidates have to take, and the list, once you take it, your name's on that list for 2 years. When we have an open position we need to fill, we reach out to the state to provide the names. So if we have one position open, we'll get up to 3 people. So it is a very limited pool who we can select from. One of the things that we're finding, hiring police everywhere right now is very difficult. I think the level of scrutiny that police receive, particularly over the past several years, has led to kind of a dearth of available or interested candidates. It's not what it was 20 years ago, but I think that's the same for a lot of public service right now.
Right.
Some civil discourse has fled the building over the past several years. So having a job in the public sector has become exceedingly difficult, to be honest. So I think you're seeing some of that with the number of candidates that we get. But we are also restricted by civil service a little bit. It's great because it takes out a lot of it takes out a lot of bias. It takes out a lot of favoritism, nepotism, because the state kind of controls who we can hire, and people have to be interested.
Is there a local preference? I'm sorry to interrupt.
There is a local preference. So if someone were to take the civil service exam and score, all you really have to do is pass. It's a 70 and above for passing. So if you pass, you'll be on the local list. So when we request the list, we'll get all of our, it'll be, so the very first people that are qualified, even before residents, are survivors of police violence. So if an officer was killed on the line of duty, any of their children that wish to become police officers are immediately at the top of that. And then it goes to residents that are veterans, disabled veterans, and then civilian residents. Then it'll go to out of town, and it'll be the same type of ranking: disabled veteran, and then just regular civilians. So, but one thing that we're not seeing is a diverse candidate pool. We do receive female candidates, but not even close to the ratio of male candidates that we do. But we're not seeing a lot of diversity in our candidate pool, and that's area wide. So we have several towns around us that are not civil service that are kind of experiencing the same thing. So, maybe I can ask, that's very difficult for us to address. Is there recommendations that the DEI committee could make to the Westford Police Department, and maybe how we increase that type of engagement and interest in our local population?
I think that, again, I'm just talking about the Asian population's perspective, right? I think there is a lack of information. There's a gap on how to get there, how to be a police officer. Most of the immigrants that I'm connected with or I'm aware of, they came through the route of technology. So they try to teach their kids what they know the best. They don't know what's the process of becoming a police officer either within this town, any other town, or even in the state. So it's a matter of lack of education, and probably we have to find some avenues where we can review the process early on with middle schoolers or high schoolers on this is how you can be a police officer, and this is what the route to get to that goal looks like, and then they can work towards it. Or maybe we have to incite that interest while they're in middle school itself. High school is probably a little bit out, because by that time they've already made up their mind what they want to do when they have grown up. So some measures most likely probably will help down the road, a few years down the road. Well,
that's good to hear, because it sounds like we're hoping to benefit from the fruits of our labor over the next several years, I hope.
Absolutely.
With not just with the Youth Academy, but the opportunities that we've been able to provide in high school. We do a career day where we have, Tony, the school SRO, speaks about the job of being a police officer. We do have a single day job shadow for the juniors, and then we have the 6-week senior capstone. And believe it or not, we've actually been incredibly successful with that capstone program. Each year we've actually been able to hire former capstone students, which is great.
That's
so
awesome.
over 80% of the Westford Police Department is Westford residents.
That's wonderful.
And one of the jokes running through the department lately has actually been, I think we have the highest per capita former Westford Academy football captains. It's like the craziest thing. So I think we all just love being a part of a team or something like that appeals to us. So,
or maybe they go to the rough and toughness of the game itself that kind of prepares them for their future.
Yeah, and it's just, and I think another way that we might be able to address that is just having our officers out in the community and taking non-conventional routes to kind of interact with our diverse community. One of the things that I'm actually really proud of is the fact that myself and several other of the officers actually coach different teams within the community. I mean, I think for years I coached either basketball or soccer. A lot of the kids that I coached in soccer are on the varsity soccer team right now, or on the basketball team. And every team that I coached was incredibly diverse, which was excellent. It was nice to have that exposure to the different cultures and just kind of make that connection. I still see some of those kids walking down the hall, and I had some of them to the house. Like my son plays soccer at WA, and we hosted one of their spaghetti nights, like the spaghetti dinners before a game, and it was great to walk out in the backyard, and I knew like 8 of the kids because I had coached them at different points in their sports careers. So we are hoping that some of that pays off. So I appreciate that feedback, and we'd also like to hear it at other times too. So if there's ever ideas from the committee that think would make sense for the police department to incorporate, we're always open to have that conversation. And that may be a change over over the past 10 years. We've tried to say yes, or let's talk about it instead of no to a lot of things that traditionally like police would be resistant to. So
I just wanted to add that I have received incredible amount of feedback on the youth camps that you just referenced, right? They were very successful. Many kids, again, the diverse population, they somehow were scared of the just name of police, even though I have had a history of police background even back home in India. And when I hear this incredible positive feedback from this young generation who is so much influenced by your very talented police officers, like they had a great experience and they are making them as a role model, right? So I think that there is a light at the end of the tunnel that probably many of those will be interested in this particular profession as they grow older.
I'm happy to hear that feedback, and I really do hope so.
Yeah.
I know my officers find it just as rewarding as the kids do, and as much fun as the kids do, I hope. They've done some really cool stuff. They have really, tour Boston Harbor and the Celtics and Bruin, or whatever, Boston Garden. Yep, the helicopter. We've had the partnership with the DEA the past few years, so we've been able to get some cool equipment for them
training.
to see. And getting them all CPR certified was a big value.
That's excellent.
And it's great because we have such a great partnership with the Westford Fire Department too. That as a community, the first responders in this community really do work together and have great relationships. So
I think we're blessed that we have both departments that work so well together and are willing to be out in the public with anybody that you can fit it in for. I know time is of an essence most of the time, but you always manage to fit it in, it seems.
We do what we
really
can.
appreciate that. I think the last question I have is that it's reported that nationwide police are leaving within the first 5 years nationwide. Are we following in that trend?
I don't know necessarily that we're following in that trend. I think that we try to do a good job of informing our candidates when they're hired and when they're going through the academy, what to expect. Unfortunately, we have had several officers over the past 5 years or so. Within their first year, they've left policing. But to be honest, we've been really fortunate. The ones that we've lost, within the first 5 to 10 years of policing, they generally will transfer to another agency to make more money, or they have more of a connection to that community. We had an officer that we had hired 2 years ago that we hired from the Middlesex Sheriff's Department. And he had 8 years of experience in the Sheriff's Department. He was doing a great job for us, great officer, but he grew up in Stoneham. And an opportunity came up in Stoneham, and it just made sense for him to go serve his home community. So, I mean, how do you say no?
That's true.
So that we've been pretty fortunate with that. But what we have seen is, you're seeing veteran officers that may leave a few years before they either are forced out or they don't reach their full retirement or full pensionable age, which was unheard of before.
And what are the reasons?
Burnout.
Okay.
Just burnout. It's the job is very stressful, and I think over the past few years we've really tried to open up other avenues for the officers to explore while they're on duty to get a little more satisfaction from the job. But for some of the officers, that have been here for 20 plus years that didn't have that opportunity, they're carrying a lot of stress. But one of the ways that we're trying to counter that is we actually, for all first responders in Westford, we were able to secure funding for an app through, there's a very generous donation from the See a New Sun Foundation that allowed us to purchase a mental health and wellness app that provides a ton of information for first responders locally. So.
I really appreciate your time today. I think we got a lot of our questions answered, and I hope it wasn't too painful for you.
Not at all, and I appreciate your time, and anytime you guys need me, just let me know. Pick some dates, I'll be here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.